You either love him or you think, no, he stepped out of line here. There is a big divide, but what do you think the polls are saying?
I think there's clearly a lot of consternation in the public. People in the heat of the moment think back to the social interactions they were forbidden from having during the peak of those lockdowns. And really, we have that sort of visceral reaction we've seen in so many cases when people sort of think back to all of those moments that they wished they'd had with the people that they loved, but they didn't get to do. However, if we take a bit more of a clinical look at this and step back from the emotion, stories like the one that we saw last night broken by ITV, it is not during the height of one of those lockdowns. It was after a couple of stages of unlocking. You were allowed to see someone else indoors. You were allowed to see 6 people outdoors. And so the comparisons when people were saying, oh, at this time I wasn't able to see X or Y, well, people were by that point.
Yes, but Tom, it was days after the Prime Minister himself had stood inside Downing Street addressing the nation, urging us all to exercise restraint, and people did. People followed his advice, and yet he didn't.
I think overwhelmingly the country did follow that advice and followed restraint. What Number 10 might argue in this case, though, is that these were people who were all in the same office anyway.
There was a second party, allegedly, as well. There was a second party
and this
with
one's
family
interesting.
and friends.
ITV say that there was a second party that happened in the flat of Number 10, well, the flat of Number 11, where the Prime Minister lives. And Number 10 strenuously denied that. So it'll be interesting to see the conclusions that Sue Gray draws, because, of course, Sue Gray was aware of these allegations, and potentially one of the reasons that all of these stories are leaking now, and we've seen so many stories over the last week and a half, is because this report is being put together. And so all of these stories that are going to be laid out methodically in this report are being spoken about, are being regurgitated, are being gone through. And a team, it's not just Sue Gray writing this report, she's got a whole team of civil servants going through compiling this report. Potentially that's where the leaks are coming from.
The problem to all of this in the context is last night Boris Johnson was on the phone to President Joe Biden and other Western leaders discussing the crisis in Ukraine, and yet, meanwhile, we know that he will have had people knocking at his door, desperate to try and get a line or to get to the bottom of what happened on his birthday 2 years ago. It's a huge distraction. How much of a problem is that for him?
It's an enormous distraction, and not one that there's an easy solution for. Of course, if this report comes out in the next few days, potentially Thursday, if then letters go in, as seems to be received wisdom in Westminster, then we're plunged into a no-confidence vote, potentially a leadership contest. That would be an even larger distraction than the distractions that we're seeing now with regard to what the Number 10 press operation needs to do with its constant management of these stories. It's a really difficult situation to manage, and there are no easy answers.
Yeah.